Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished guests, delegates, professors, colleagues, and friends. My name is Sharif Abdel Mohsen, professor and chair of the Department of Architecture here at the American University in Cairo. It's really a pleasure to welcome you today to this exciting event here organized and hosted by our Department of Architecture at AUC. As the 12th edition of the World Urban Forum, or WUF, takes place in Cairo from the 4th to the 8th of November with the theme of It All Starts at Home, All Starts Locally, All Starts Together, we take pride at our department and at AUC to be part of this global movement. Today, we have had the pleasure in the morning and afternoon to successfully host a number of highly engaging and intellectually fulfilling discussions, sessions, and talks by distinguished participants, collaborators, and scholars in the area of urban design and planning. We're proud to have hosted today a set of very interesting activities, including the World Urban Campaign Assembly, Sustainable Proximities Conference, and it gives us great pleasure now to host this magnificent public talk by the renowned global urbanist Professor Carolos Moreno. This comes with an exciting gathering of distinguished participants from 13 international universities, real estate developers, grassroots organizations, and local activists, in addition to more than 150 participants and 1,200 registered attendees coming from 30 different countries. In these critical times, characterized with multiple disruptions from climate change to global crises, pandemics, outbreaks, wars, and conflicts, we all, academics, experts, and policymakers, are pushed to come together to advance new ways, mechanisms, and approaches to rethink the city. And today we have the guru who invented the re-envisioning of cities as 15-minute clusters. Our department at AUC is really thrilled to host the renowned scholar, Professor Carolos Moreno, today for this public talk titled Urban Proximity Matters. The talk will provide insightful perspectives on reimagining urban spaces to enhance residents' quality of life. This comes in line with our efforts internally here at AUC, given AUC's initiative of One University, Two Campuses, which really sheds light on the shaping and reshaping of the city within the growing metropolis of Cairo, and also AUC's current ambitious plans for its own Campus 2026 master plan expansion. Within our department, we are proud to have launched today also some of the fabulous work done by our faculty at AUC, namely the soft launch of the Urban Studies Lab that is spread across Tahrir and New Cairo towards mobilizing the city from the old historic urban core to the new city expansions at the desert periphery. All of which push us to rethink the role of agency and activism in a transformative growing metropolis and the need to redefine how proximities operate from within our wicked problems at the global south. Before introducing Professor Moreno, I would like to offer a round of applause to the champion of this effort and the director of the Urban Studies Lab, our own Dr. Momen El-Husseiny. Dr. Momen El-Husseiny, Assistant Professor of Architecture and Urban Design at our Department of Architecture at AUC. As a licensed architect since 2003, Dr. Momen has collaborated in the design of several international competitions and projects across the Middle East, including the American University in Cairo's New Cairo campus, particularly the Performance and Visual Arts Building with its park and square. He's a trained ethnographer with a PhD from the University of California, Berkeley in architecture, with a designated emphasis on global metropolitan studies and a minor in anthropology. Professor Carolos Moreno is a university professor at IAE Paris Sorbonne and chair ETI, internationally recognized for pioneering concepts like the 15-minute city and 30-minute territory. He's the scientific director of Chair Entrepreneurship Territory Innovation, or ETI, and led the launch of the Global Observatory of Sustainable Proximities at the World Urban Forum with the UN Habitat and UCLG. His work focuses on urban innovation and sustainable proximity, or I think as we will see it today, proxilience. I think we will hear that term today. Today we host this international local dialogue, a global one, hoping to listen, learn, and exchange ideas and thoughts and create a platform for collaborative opportunities with everyone. Following the talk, we will have a brief panel moderated by Dr. Momen El-Husseiny with Professor Carolos Moreno. At the end, I would really like to thank our great champions from UN Habitat who made this special day possible. Christine Auclair. Thank you, Christine. Damien Thibon. And Youssef Baidoun. The Sustainable Proximities team from Chair ETI, Sorbonne, Paris, Professor Carolos Moreno, of course. Catherine Gall. And Chiara Martunizzi. And of course, our own amazing AUC team of Urban Studies Lab led by our Dr. Momen El-Husseiny, again. And our heroic research assistant, Sarah Siam. And Lara Shaheen. And of course, a round of applause for our incredible students organization, Architectural Association, the AA. I hope you enjoyed this evening and the talk by Professor Carlos and the rich discussions that will follow, and welcome everybody to AUC. Professor Carlos, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this kind of introduction. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. It's a great honor for me to be in this amazing auditorium for delivering this keynote. Thank you to UN Habitat. Thank you to Christine Auclair, Damien, and thank you to my team, Catherine Gall, Chiara. Thank you for your presence. Students, professors, teachers, researchers. I will deliver this lecture for evoking my scientific contribution of my team on this ambitious topic that we have proposed for 4 years now after the COVID-19. The urban revolution based on a happy proximity. And in fact, even if I have started this research in 2010, today, worldwide, a lot of people could observe the development of this concept in a city as Paris. During the Olympic Games, it was evident the transformation of this city with this concept of a happy proximity for offering a lot of services in our city. And these Olympic Games were an outstanding opportunity for showing this capability for offering decentralized sites for competition, for reconquering our natural resources, the Seine River, for generating a lot of different activities in public spaces, for developing these multipurpose functions, for offering this concrete development of this Anne Hidalgo vision based on proximities. The tactical urbanism in Paris during Olympic Games was a concrete demonstration that it is possible to change here and now the shape of our cities. The Louvre, Eiffel Tower, Seine River, the historical different buildings were in fact totally transformed for hosting not only competitions, but to hosting people, citizen dwellers, for offering these places, these different spots for everyone, for accomplishing this main idea. We need cities for all, and we need cities for everyone. We need to reuse our infrastructures for changing radically our urban development based no more in the construction of new infrastructures, but based essentially in the different services, uses for satisfying, for improving our quality of life. The 15-minute city is today very popular worldwide. And for my different lectures, conferences, I said, please, the less important point with the 15-minute city is not the number, is not the 15. We have a lot of different customizations, implementations around the world. The most important point is to consider that it is absolutely necessary to switch from the 20th century model based on zonification, segmentation, gentrification, the single use of buildings and infrastructures toward a polycentric view toward the multipurpose functions, to the intensive use of infrastructures, to the functional mix, to the social mix. The rise of the 15-minute city today around the world is in fact this evidence with a concrete urban and territorial proximity, with the commitment of local mayors, local governance. It is possible to offer a new perspective. And this perspective is totally compliant with the great challenges that we have today worldwide. This concept is totally regardless of size, of density, of cities and territories. We have today a lot of implementations around the world in the big metropolises, including regions, until very smart towns, even ruralities. One of the relevant points is that this concept is not only a theoretical scientific contribution. This is at the same time a permanent dialogue with the local governance, with mayors, with the local authorities, for offering in this permanent dialogue and dynamic for, at the beginning, experiencing this concept, and after to deploy a new strategy, roadmap, and a concrete transformations in our cities. We have today, in a lot of cities around the world, a lot of different nicknames. The 15-minute city, the 10-minute city, for example, in Utrecht. The mayor of Utrecht was yesterday with myself and other colleagues in a panel. And the question in Utrecht is the presence of 300 and more thousand bikes daily in the city. The question in Utrecht is the bike jams, because we have enough bikes, and the mayor of Utrecht has launched the 10-minute city Utrecht for offering a more decentralized access in proximity to essential services. We have the 20-minute neighborhood in Australia. We have the 20-minute territory in Scotland. This is the new law voted by the Parliament in 2023. We have the vital neighborhood, the complete neighborhood. We have a lot of different nicknames, because this concept is alive. We have the possibility for enriching this concept in permanence. We are today a vibrant research worldwide community. This day, we had today, this morning, the conference on the American University of Cairo with a lot of colleagues of the different universities and laboratories in different points of the world. Today, we have in permanence a lot of scientific contributions worldwide, and this 15-minute city concept has become as well a specific topic for our research with the pluridisciplinary, multidisciplinary researchers, urbanists, architects, economists, mathematicians, computer scientists, sociologists, and others. I'm very proud of that. Our scientific paper introducing the 15-minute city sustainability, resilience, and place identity in future post-pandemic cities has today, in October 2024, more than 130,000 kilo views, and this is today one of the most quoted scientific paper in our sector. I have received a lot of different awards. However, my favorite award is this one, the Scholar of Honor by UN Habitat 2 years ago. Why? In fact, this Scroll of Honor, it wasn't the Scroll of Honor for Carolos Moreno. This is the Scroll of Honor for the 15-minute city global initiative. That means that this is no more my concept. This is the concept of the global scientific community and beyond. This is the concept of this worldwide community committed for examining the contribution of proximities for transforming our daily lives in the different contexts. Paris is different to Madrid, to Buenos Aires, to Bogota, to Quezon and Philippines, to Seoul, of the Pleszova, a small town in Poland. We have created, in fact, a global, a common narrative, common good, human-oriented, for improving the quality of life of cities and dwellers in cities and territories, for offering a continuity in the perspective of the new urban agenda, and for going beyond 2030, to offering to the different stakeholders, private sector, the new business opportunities for transforming our business model in our cities, for switching from the urbanism of the 20th century towards the urbanism of the 21st century. This is no more a question of the recovery post-COVID. This is a question for transforming radically our lifestyle, our work style, and for reshaping differently our cities. This is not only a magic wand for transforming in a few months, even in a few years, 7 decades of zonification, of gentrification. However, this is the possibility for creating a new road plan, for proposing the new local and urban plan, the new territorial plan, for evoking the short-term, mid-term, and long-term in this transformation. This is the sense of my scientific contribution. This is the sense of my different books, and I am very proud of these different books' contribution translated today in 10 different languages around the world for contributing to offer this perspective. In fact, one of the key elements for developing this concept is the mix of different disciplines. I'm neither urbanist nor architect. My discipline, my first discipline, is mathematics and computer science. This is my PhD. For 25 years, I was totally dedicated, 100% and more, for understanding cities around the world, for evoking this essential question: how could we survive in the 21st century to the dramatic impact of climate change in an urbanized world? In 2010, I read this outstanding book of the Nobel Prize, my friend Mohamed Yunus. In 2010, he published a world of 000, zero carbon, zero poverty, zero exclusion. And this was the spark for switching from mathematics and computer science, from the smart city, towards this new perspective to transform our cities in face of this triple challenge: climate change, poverty, and social exclusion. This was the sense of the book of Mohamed Yunus: zero carbon, zero poverty, zero exclusion. These three essential threats are totally interconnected. In 2015, Paris has hosted the COP21, this deal between the different nations for signing the Paris Agreement. And at the same time, Anne Hidalgo has hosted the conference 1,000 Measures for Climate. And I said at this moment, given that cities are the most significant contributor of CO2 emissions, we need to understand the future of cities for reducing, not only by the technical measures, the CO2 contributions, but more strategic to change our lifestyle radically in order to create the new daily life for reducing our CO2 emissions, for fostering a more local economy, local employment for fighting against poverty, and for developing more vibrant neighborhood for having a more social inclusion in our cities. This was, in fact, the start in 2016 of this project, when I proposed to experience in Paris, in 3 different districts, this concept. From 2016 until 2018, I have experienced this concept in 3 different districts in Paris in the area of the future Olympic Games. This is the link between this idea in 2016, 8 years after, in 2024, when the world could observe the impact of these transformations in 2024. During the COVID, in 2020, this concept has become very popular. But Anne Hidalgo has embraced this concept before the COVID in 2019. After the COVID-19, in March, a lot of different mayors in Europe were interested for embracing this idea, in particular the mayor of Milan, the epicenter of COVID in Europe. And in July 2020, the C40 cities, the global network of mayors for fighting against climate change of metropolises, has embraced this concept as well. Today, we have created, with C40 cities at the beginning, supported by the strong commitment of UN Habitat and UCLG, the Global Observatory of Sustainable Proximity, for federating all different initiatives in order to change our cities, our territories, using this new paradigm. The European Union has created the Driving Urban Transitions program for funding projects with a yearly call for proposals. For 4 years, the Union European, with this call for proposal, has been contributing for the emergence of more than 100 different projects with the 27 countries of the European Union, and each year the invitation to 3 different countries outside the European Union. Driving urban transitions, a sustainable future for cities, with the item, the 50-minute city transition pathway. I want to invite to download this publication in April 2024, the mapping of 15-minute city practices, more than 100 projects in Europe. This is as well very important in this university to pay tribute to a lot of numbers thinkers and doers committed for a long time for transforming our cities. From e-business award at the end of the 19th century when he proposed the garden cities. Giorgio Simmel, sociologist, the German sociologist at the beginning of the 20th century. Clarence Ferry, the American thinker who proposed the modular united neighborhood. Until recently, my friend Jan Gehl, the Danish urbanist, when he published in 1992 Cities for People, and at the center of this galaxy, the unforgettable Jane Jacobs, thinker, activist, and at the same time totally committed. She coined the concept of a living city, a livable city. What is the situation today? This is a picture 2 days ago in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, Cartagena, in the Caribbean, in Colombia. This is a drama in Valencia, in Spain. 200 people died and more. A city totally impacted, totally paralyzed by the economical situation. This is the dramatic pictures 1 month ago in Central Europe by the Boris storm. We have a lot of COP, climate or biodiversity, for discussing. Indeed, climate change is totally interconnected with the different ecosystem, biodiversity, and beyond. The question of the massive urbanization is related to the systemic impacts and the degradation of our quality of life. 3 days ago, the COP16 of biodiversity, Peace with Nature, finished in Cali, Colombia, my country, my city. The final declarations said people, society, cities, and territories are interconnected with plants, animals, and environment. In my opinion, this is one of the most significant common points for transforming our cities, territories, in a real systematic perspective. I say to my students that we need to understand the impact of this picture, of this bone. The American anthropologist from New York, Margaret Mead, said that the first sign of a civilization is, in fact, this bone. This femur was broken, and in fact, he was held. Margaret Mead said, this broken femur was the first sign of civilization because some should be with this person, hominid, for attempting that his bone was held. This is the first sign of mutual care, of collaboration. And Margaret Mead, this collaboration and mutual care are in the DNA of civilization. If we wanted to understand, in reality, the perspective of the 15-minute city of this proximity is in the sense of the mutual care, the collaborative approach. I said that a house is not just a roof, it's not just four walls. For the World War I campaign, we said we need to consider that housing doesn't mean living in the city. We need to generate well-being, social inclusion, economical inclusion, urban health, territorial health, dignity, safety. House proximity matters is the motto for interconnecting housing, social housing, and well-being. And the common point is, in reality, our capability for offering a choice close of the places where people live or have an activity. James Jacobs said the point of cities is to have every time, everywhere, a multiplicity of choice without having a car dependency. The 15-minute city is totally inspired by James Jacobs for proposing a way for offering a multiplicity of choice everywhere, every time, for creating a new urban and territorial framework, for creating a new relationship between an urban and territorial space and a useful time. The X-minute city, the X-minute territory, in this way of a happy polycentric proximity, is a powerful perspective for reconciling ecology for reducing our CO2 footprint, economy for creating local economy, local employments, and a social impact for offering social inclusion, social housing, and more social interactions in our neighborhood. The proximity, the happy polycentric proximity, in fact, is our capability for generating a new urban feel, for loving our neighbor, for reconquering building by building, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, a really inclusive, interactive, a healthy city. We need to be aware that this is not a theoretical point of view. This is possible today to develop this transformation, but this is a harder task. This is a harder task because on the 20th century, at the end of the 20th century, we are in face with this amazing economical inequity, with this generation of the wealthy people, poor people. But unfortunately, we have accepted the unacceptable, to develop cities as a giant metronome for rejecting people more and more far and far away without an access to the essential services. We have created this urban segregation, overcrowded districts, so far of the essential services. We have developed this spatial injustice. And at the same time, we have developed this temporal injustice, 2 hours, 3 hours more, at the origin of this social exclusion. Our common enemy today in our cities is, in fact, the social vulnerability in the mix of the economical inequities, spatial injustice, and temporal injustice. This is available worldwide. This is the city of Paris. But the city of Paris is crossed by this social and temporal exclusion. In the west of Paris, we have the places for working. In the east of Paris, we have the places for living. The isochron by the temporal injustice are very strong from the east, from the south, from the north, a lot of different of the west. The social housing in Paris is almost a social urban segregation. We have in the east, in the northeast of Paris, until 42% of social housing. In the west of Paris, 2.2% of the social housing. The question is not to generate the social housing. The question is to generate an acceptable social housing based on this proximity for services, mix of the social function and services, and the mix of social categories. The temporal and spatial urban segregation has become the norm, the normality. In the historical center, we have a lot of different services. However, 15 kilometers so far, 25, 30 kilometers, we have red, the absence of essential services. The solution is not to have more social housing 30 kilometers far away of this historical center. It is to offer dignity with a lot of different services, local economy, green areas, sport activities, access to the essential services. This is one of the cities of the global south and metropolises, Bogota, the capital of my country of birth, Colombia. 9 million of inhabitants. In the red circle, almost half population of this city, the population density. On the other hand, the employment. We have this spatial segregation. This is the map of the incomes, the perfect coincidence between the overcrowded popular districts and people with the low income, the low revenues. This map is the access to education. In these areas, we have just the access to the primary education. In this map, we have the isochron for accessing to a job, education, health, culture. In this district, 19 until 120 minutes and more. The consequence in terms of mobility, of course, this diagonal from people from the poor district, popular districts, towards the north, the more employment-enriched district. 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, just for going to a job. The 50-minute city is today very popular worldwide, given that a lot of mayors, local governors, are today committed for transforming this critical situation, for implementing a proximity for everyone, a proximity for all, for fighting against segregation, not only for reducing our carbon footprint, not only for creating more social interactions in our neighborhood, but for transforming the business model of our cities. Our colleague Benjamin Büttner of the Technical University of München has proposed this 8th principle of the 15-minute city. Proximity to essential services, an organic density for a neighborhood in a human-scale city, intensive mixed uses for the multipurpose function of buildings, quality for public spaces, efficient public transportations, active low-carbon mobility on foot or by bike, inclusivity and ubiquity. This is in reality the response for evoking in what kind of city do we want to live in today. It's no more possible to continue to live in face with climate change in mineral cities, with traffic jams, overcrowded public transportation, in the fragile situation in face with diseases, with these unhumanized malls. We need to turn on the 21st century of urbanism based on the massification of cars, the use of oil for cars, and to continue to building more and more corporate business districts with the single use of cars, of buildings. Le Corbusier, the charte d'atteindre the principles of the 20th century urbanism, said, the city that succeeds is the city one that moves faster and surer. This is the pattern of zonification in our cities. The essential needs are totally separated. We have different colors, and for going from the one color to another color, we need a transportation, unfortunately, essentially by car, or an overcrowded mass transportation in the peak hours. This is the pattern of my city, Paris, with the biggest corporate business district in Europe, La Défense. And at the opposite, in the east, we have the people that live need to go to La Défense daily for working. 1.2 million passengers in the mass transportation in the peak hours, and 300 kilometers of traffic jams with a car for going using the former highway along the Seine River. But this is the same pattern in Buenos Aires, exactly the same situation. This is the pattern in Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia, the lowest density in the world. Why? We need to have the same pattern, the same mobility, traffic jams, cars, social exclusion, temporal exclusion, spatial injustice, because this is our paradigm during the 20th century. We want to change that. With the Professor Yunus, with the concept of the zero carbon, zero poverty, zero exclusion. For 2 years, we have started this work with the Nobel Prize Paul Krugman when he proposed the new economical geography, the nearshoring, for relocalizing our economy, relocalizing jobs, to redevelop local activities. Today, the X-minute city is the way in this happy polycentric proximity for reinventing this new economical geography of a sustainable proximity. Proximity in the new economic geography is a new way for transforming our paradigm, not only in an ecological way, not only in a social way, but at the same time in an economical way. We need to reconquer the old wisdom of the cities before becoming car-centered, for finding these 100% human cities. To break out of definitely this behavior of the modern centaurs, half human, half car, for having 100% humanity in our cities. We are today in permanence, a lot of crises, climate, virus, economical poverty, social exclusion, racism, populism, and wars. For that, in face with these different crises, we need to address this complexity. Proximity, the OCDE said recently, need to go together with social justice, economic justice, climate justice, self-sufficiency for neighborhood, and at the same time to be resilient. I proposed during this World Urban Forum this concept as proximity as the best urban and territorial resilience, for I propose to this term of proxilience for evoking how could we create this transformation. A polycentric organization, okay. Sorry, I said just for finishing. Proximity is our best resilience. It's our best resilience. For that, I propose to this term of proxilience, for taking advantage of our recent transformations, the transformation of work by the hybridizations, to create these polycentric organizations, for developing this social circularity, for having the sense of habitability, to have a home with a lot of services in this proximity, for creating this new rainbow of the high-quality societal life based on the mix of the different functions. I proposed this model to live in a house in a gentle density, to reduce our daily commute for working, to supply in proximity, for creating employment, local circuits, to use raw materials, to develop a more vibrant economy, to develop the care, the well-being, to develop the educational cultural activities, and to enjoy in public space. I propose this ontologic model based on the use of services, equipment, infrastructures. We have developed a global methodology based in mathematical and computer scientist geodata analysis, and at the same time, based on listen to inhabitants, listen to community with the innovative pedagogic tools. We have created a different technological platform for that, for exploring our territories, for generating the new indicators, for proposing the new livability index, for using science and data science for generating our scoring in cities. We have proposed as well to listen to inhabitants, given that proximity is not the same for a teenager, for an elderly people, for a couple with or without children. Proximity needs to be adaptive. We need to use the interaction of people for evoking the best conditions for using public spaces. We need, at the same time, to generate the more trust of citizen dwellers. We wanted to create these new tools in order to propose a best way for generating ideas, for creating a best social acceptability. This is one of our difficulties. To change a model, this is a question of to develop the social acceptability for each one of us. A lot of people consider that a normal life is to have a car for using, even just for a few kilometers during the day. We need to transform that for generating the social acceptability, and this is a long pathway. Unfortunately, we have today a lot of cities committed in this approach, in the 5 continents. In my city of Paris, I'm very proud of the decision of the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, for voting a new local urban plan. We have today a lot of different projects for implementing this model, but the sense is to have this local urban plan. We have developed the new plans for fostering the local economy, local jobs, for transforming the idea of social housing, for offering social housing in this way, house proximity matters, for managing the conversion of commercial space, the single functions in the multi-purpose functions, including social housing and mixity. We have generated new centralities with the social housing in a significant social mixity. We have today around the world, in rurality, in small towns, in Poland, in Pleszowa. This morning we have hosted the mayor of Saint-Hilaire-de-Bretmas in France, 5,000 inhabitants. In Milano, the transformation of the public space. In Cleveland, one of the most automotive cities in the USA. In Buenos Aires, for generating the new green areas and the multipurpose functions. In Mexico, with the new mayor, Clara Brugada, for offering the new utopias, the decentralized short-distance services. We have implemented in one of the districts, 2 million of inhabitants, 18 different utopias. In Guadalajara, in Bogota, the care blocks, Las Manzanas del Cuidado, one of the most significant urban transformations for offering this proximity for caregivers. In Africa, in Tunisia, in Sousse, we have today, for 400,000 inhabitants, this transformation with the new development urban plan. In Melbourne, in Australia, we have today the 20-minute neighborhood as the urban policy. In South Korea, in Busan, in Seoul, in Daejeon, in Jeju, we have the very, very committed transformations in this way. In Scotland, this is a law. The Scottish Parliament has voted a new law in February 2023, the framework for 20-minute neighborhood, and they have published in May 2024 the guidance plan for the urban transformation of Scottish cities. I want just to finish for insisting in the strategic importance of the Global Observatory of Sustainable Proximity. This is the place totally open for hosting academic scientists, students, researchers, local governors, stakeholders, for contributing to federate the different teams and initiatives around the world. Please join us. Please, academic, professors, students, teachers, we need your support, we need your contributions, we need your commitment. We could together, it is possible to transform our cities. We need to be patient, but to insist and to have a cap, to have a vision, to have this construction of the inclusive future in the ecological, economical, and social way. Don't forget, for a happy, polycentric city, we need a happy house proximity way. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Professor Moreno, thank you so much for that wonderful provocation. And I think it's what that notion of proximity, it's not about the minutes as you mentioned, but it's rather about diagnosing what is happening in the city towards change. There is the question about the political imagination.
Exactly.
That it really depends on the role model and the interreferential model of global cities. That then there is an imported and exported urbanism to become part of the world, to be in this transformative notion of the CBD, the Central Business District. And it's a blooming, it's kind of a mind-blowing thing. How can the notion of proximity stand in front of the political imaginary with the landscape of borrowing such models that by virtue will rely on cars and more transportation, more distance, and it's okay, as if it's okay by kind of countering that with smart cars, e-cars, and so forth. So what would be your response?
Thank you, dear Momen, for this comment, this question. In fact, in the small world of urbanism and architecture worldwide, my good friend Saskia Sassen, in 1992, has modelized this idea of the global city. For Saskia Sassen at this moment, a global city, in fact, was a place for developing a stronger economy, social interactions, for developing the new regulations, the new policies, and to create an interterritorial network outside the control of governments. The theory of the global city with Saskia was, for example, one of the pillars for creating the global network of cities, the mayors, C40 cities, and others. And this is so interesting because we have observed this capability by the concept of global cities for examining the local context of a city and to regenerate a competition as well between the cities. Singapore, London, New York, Paris, Frankfurt, Seoul. In this period of the competition in cities, the real key vector was the attractivity. And this attractivity was based on the economical performance, the investment, and the investment including the foreign investments. This development was at the source of the CBD in a lot of different places because we needed to be attractive, to have a skyline with a lot of different big buildings for installing the headquarters of the global companies. Even if in Paris, the biggest CBD in Europe was created in 1962, the golden period was in 19th until the 2000. And the reality for the urban development today is that the 30, 40 years for developing these big metropolises was totally focused on the economical performance. The question of the mobility, the question of the massive use of cars, even the question of the impact of the building for climate change is not the priority. After the COP21 in Paris in 2015, we have started a new reflection, given that the economic impact of climate change in our cities. This is today one of the most relevant new changes. Our colleagues of the Potsdam Institute for Economical Impact of Climate Change said the usual business in our big metropolises has a reduction of 18%, the usual business by climate change. And the cumulative amount of the impact of climate change by damages is $38 trillion yearly. We need, in fact, to be aware that for having this strategic change, we need to transform the business model of cities. We need to transform the usual business model for evoking the new opportunities. With this concept, with the 50-minute city, with this happy polycentric proximity, this is a way for transforming as well the business model of these corporate cities. This is the case today in Paris. La Défense, the biggest corporate district today, is in a way, is a really non-way, non-future. The decision for a lot of companies was today to reinvest in more flat buildings, decentralized, to continue in the way of the hybridization, remote jobs. And we have a lot of young workers interested in to have services in proximity. In La Défense, this is just a single use for working. The young workers today prefer to refuse to go to La Défense, and this is for us a best way for creating, for generating with this model, these new opportunities. And even if we had the global city as the new way in 1992, today, this model of proximity for local mayors, for local governance, is the new opportunity for regenerating our cities. The question, in fact, is to offer at the same time the new opportunities for people with low incomes, with low revenues. And the key question in this way is the social inclusion based on the social housing. We don't forget that we have at the same time 20% of the world population that lives in precarious housing. The 50-minute city is an opportunity for mixing a new economic model, for using different, this no more corporate business district single functions, but to redevelop the new programs for facilitating this social interaction, even this social mixity, and for having a new approach of social housing. With this idea, we need not only to offer a house for people with low revenues, but to offer dignity with more local services. This new centralities is one of the key for transforming our cities today.
This is fascinating. Another thing that attracted the attention is the map of the global map, the world map that you presented about the cities and the countries that are involved in the 15 minutes or the X minute. There is a vacuum in Africa. And this is quite intriguing. Africa and the Middle East, I would say. So why is that? How can we explain that?
In Africa, this is today a new, this is the new field for exploring with the local actors. Our capability for reversing this, this traditional model of the giant metronome, I said. We have just a little experience in Tunisia with the city of Sousse, 400,000 inhabitants. This is not a metropolis as Cairo, for example. In this city, we have today a real good experience, given that we have developed with the mayor, the Sousse City Council, a new local urban plan based on this idea of decentralization services. In reality, the question is in Africa to make a difference between a big metropolis as Cairo, for example, of the middle city or ruralities. It's my first time in Cairo as professional. I visit Cairo as tourist, but my close example is in South America, for example, Bogota, Buenos Aires, Santiago. We have, in fact, three short elements. The first one, when we have the political commitment of the local governance for reversing the model. This is the case today, for example, in Santiago de Chile, with the governor of Santiago de Chile wants to transform this model for generating proximity, for offering a social housing with dignity, for reducing the CO2 emissions, for fostering people, for having green areas, medical services. I think that we need to be patient because this transformation is a slow transformation. The synergy of this transformation needs to offer to the citizen dwellers at the same time the concrete places in this transformation and to have a council with a solid majority for having this transformation. I'm convinced that maybe in Africa, one of the way is the way of the care. This is the way in Bogota. In Bogota, for example, we have with the care district, with the care block, a great success. In Mexico, is the same situation. Mexico, 23 million of inhabitants. The new mayor, Clara Brugada, was the mayor of one of the districts, 2 million of inhabitants. This mayor had a great success with the new model of care to create the new decentralized place for offering well-being, community capacity building, for offering sport activities, educational activities, creating interactive exhibitions, to offer training, education, medical services. And in this area, with the new 18 centralities, for 2 million of inhabitants, she has reduced, for example, the violence of 47%. Her project today is to create 100 new centralities during the next 5 years. But we need this political commitment. And the second point is to have an agreement of the stakeholders for joining this movement, for accepting that we could reduce a physical presence for working by 1 day or 2 days, for mixing with the hybridization by the remote jobs. I don't know in Africa what are the conditions for having mayors committed in a local governance for saying we need to change our model. We need to explore this acceptability by mayors for embracing this concept.
It's like Nancy Fraser, it's about recognition and representation and participation of citizens in the decision making.
And maybe the emulation of other mayors. Yeah. In South America, one of the key points was the emulation with UCLG, with C40 cities, with ICLEI. The action of UN Habitat as well has been creating the new ambience for mayors. I went a lot of times with my team to Buenos Aires, to Santiago, to Bogota, to Mexico City, for the big meetings with a lot of mayors, and we have in permanence these different initiatives for creating a new ambience. And at the same time, we have mixed, for example, in South America, we have a strong commitment of the IBD, the Inter-American Bank of Development. This is the bank, but this bank is totally committed for going in this way. And we have created a network, the Cities for Changing, managed by the Inter-American Bank for Development. They are here for the UF, and they have taken part in different panels for saying we need to invest in new buildings infrastructures for having a more compact cities. I think that this kind of emulation and mixity of the different actors is one of the key for managing this transformation.
That's amazing. Yeah. I would like to open the floor for Q&A and questions from the audience. And we want to encourage.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, fine.
I totally enjoyed your talk, and I have read about the 15-minute city quite extensively. So I always had this pressing question regarding the 15-minute city, which is how to apply that model on a decentralized city. So from what you were describing, especially in the diagrams at the beginning, I think about Colombia, the area where people work is a central area, and the area where people live, it's another central area.
Yes.
So when talking about an area, for example, like Cairo here in Egypt, we don't have exact CBDs or exact centers where people work, where people live, etc. Everything is quite integrated. So it would be quite interesting to see how we can apply that model on a decentralized city like Cairo, how to put everything together and group all sorts of people. For example, when I get to work, I may drive from here in New Cairo to the 6th of October, which is on the other side of town. So that's something I'm quite interested in knowing how we can approach that problem. Thank you.
Very good comment, a very good question. In the case of Bogota, in fact, we have this situation. This is the result of a lot of years based on this zonification. This was the Corbusier model. Le Corbusier has proposed this model in Bogota, in other cities as well, in Buenos Aires. And the modern urbanism and architecture, because in fact in Bogota, they have built this modern skyline during 30 years, but promoted by the investors, by the big companies for having the modern Bogota. The motto was, Bogota will become the Athens of Latin America, but not Athens by the Acropolis of the other historical sites, but just by synonymous of modernity, skyscrapers. In fact, the idea is more to have in Manhattan than Athens. And the creation of these modern skyscrapers at the same time has created this metronome attitude for people that in the informal settlements, because in the southwest, these districts are in reality the informal settlements that have become after that the settlements. But at the origin, this is the migration, the internal migration from the countryside to arrive to the city, the former farmers of peasants. Yeah. We wanted to, in this kind of city, to create a program based on 32 new centralities for managing. The first point is the education. The problem is the absence of the basic services, and the absence of 3 basic services. The first one is social housing with dignity, because we don't have a real social housing. We have just overcrowded buildings where people live. We need to transform and to generate a more interaction with the essential services: education, medical services, sport, green areas. Without, we have punished for a long time these people for continuing to go so far for accessing to the services. The statistics for having a specialized medical services 2 hours from this district. In reality, today, in this district, one of the impact of the 50-minute city is the rise for the inhabitants for being aware that we need to reclaim this kind of services for improving their quality of life. And you have more and more this community building resilience for saying we need more medical services, we need more schools, we need more primary schools, we need more high schools. We need to create more local employment, in fact. And we have in this kind of city 2 different movements. The bottom-up movement of the top-down movement by the mayor for creating the new centralities, and the bottom-up of the citizens for reclaiming, including with the demonstrations for saying we need to access to more local services, to access to education, to access to the medical services. And the key element, in fact, is this convergence between the local governance for accepting this transformation and the emergence of this movement for generating a more radical request for this transformation. In Cairo, honestly, I don't know what is the real condition. It's the new Cairo, because this is the new urban project, different of the old Cairo. I observed this big monorail. And I heard that maybe we need more than 1 hour for joining by the monorail the access to the administrative services, because this is the new administrative Cairo. different the former usual Cairo. I'm not sure that to have a monorail for offering more than 1 hour for services is one of the futuristic ways for reducing our transportation time. I'm not really sure.
The monorail is quite interesting because it has two stretches, one from the new administrative capital to Medinat Nos, or the Cairo Stadium, to the east, and then another one to the west, and then it has a separation in the river, Nile River. So you really don't cross even from one edge to the other. You have to have transitions, and it's interesting. It has its own, it's something to explore, actually. No, it's, yeah. To explore for research. There is a question back there.
Hello. Thank you very much for your informative session. I have a question. Can you please highlight the impact of social norms and culture on the idea of combining different socioeconomic standards in one place to provide their facilities? Because now in Egypt, most probably the richer standards are living in satellite cities, but they depend on their jobs or something in the downtown. Also their school, their children's schools are in totally different place. So the commuting is unbelievable. So I think the idea that you're talking about, please, I would like to hear your point of view of the, not the political side, but the social side of the people themselves. Are they going to embrace the idea that we can all live in the same, different socioeconomic standards in the same place so we can minimize commuting? And thank you.
You're right, and this is a good comment more than the question. The question of this social commitment for insisting in finding this new way. My response on that is correlated to, in the global north, the question of the impact of COVID-19 in young workers. During the COVID-19, a lot of people have discovered that we could work differently. Instead of to have the physical presence every day, 1 hour and more, just for commuting 2 hours for a round trip, a lot of people have discovered this possibility for working differently, and a lot of companies have discovered an opportunity for a new reduction cost policy, because we have this negative or positive externalities by the presence or absence of people during 1 day or 2 days. And we have started a new balance between the physical presence, the remote presence, but in fact, the essential push in this way was the position of the young workers. Today, for hiring people, the situation is totally inverse, because for the interview, for the hiring, the young workers have this question: have you 1 day, 2 days of telecommuting? The response is no. The interview is finished by the candidate. We have this new pressure. I am very curious today for observing, for examining in Africa, and this is the case today in Cairo, what is the impact in reality of this transformation. I was very surprised these days in Valencia, in Spain, the third city of Spain, because with the drama by the impact of the flood, etc., it is impossible to use a car, because there are a lot of roads are destroyed, a lot of people have lost a car, And I read the testimony of workers that said, my boss most of my physical presence for working, but I don't more a car because my car was destroyed. For taking the public transportation and others, 3 hours. And the response of the employer is, I will fire you if you are not present in my company. Very interesting to observe the impact, because at the same time, a lot of people said, this is the spatial injustice. We don't have a car, we don't have the possibility for going, the roads are totally destroyed. We need to change, in fact. And we have a new social movement. We have today the social protestation of people in Valencia for saying, this is the concrete example of the spatial injustice by the segregation, people that live so far of their job places, and at the same time the temporal injustice, because without a car they need 3 hours just for people said this is totally insane, in fact. And the interest point is, in fact, what will be the impact for contributing to generating this new social protestation or social new behavior, for generating this new urban culture. In new urban culture, in the different sites, the local governance, employees, the corporate new policies, and the behavior of citizen dwellers and employees. And I think that this is maybe a turning point today with the impact more and more frequently of the climate change, because we have in just 1 month, Valencia, in France, in Portugal, in Italy, in the Eastern Europe. This is today a more and more present reality for constraining to act for changing this model. I am totally convinced that climate change has today several impacts in economic models for having this capability for constraint to act for changing this model. In the same way, when we need to change the model during the oil crisis at the other moments, and to generate the new business model in this kind of way. I am convinced that the pedagogical efforts, in particular to the young people, are today one of the maybe sparks for going in this change. And this kind of proposal, the 50-minute city, the happy proximity, the X the cities, this is the new opportunity for saying another model is possible, for building a new narrative, and for transforming this narrative in the new, maybe concrete transformative programs.
Yeah, I mean, it's as if not to accept the unacceptable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There was a question back there.
Yes. Hello. Okay. In the middle.
What?
Yes. Hi. Okay. Hi. Hi. I wanted. Sorry. Okay. Oh, okay.
He had his hands
Yes,
first.
hi.
Oh, okay.
Am I?
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Okay, so hello, my name is Hind. I've graduated from architecture department last year. I'm from Ismailia, and I had a question related to, according to Moore's law, we're getting closer, and we're getting like more population, and like close in size and in space. So our buildings start to be like high-rise buildings and offices, and we became disconnected from the world. So the 50-minute city is you merge the community development cooperations with the private developers to think to building and making the community more can be an investor place, and also building for the profit. So my question is, the X-minute city you've mentioned, what's the equation for it to get the right answer for a regular citizen that wants to be part of a solution? If it's a pentagon equation that has 3 constants and 2 variables for the citizens to work on, so if like I'm passing through the street and I want to solve this equation to make my city part of the solution and to be a 15-minute city. Thank you.
Very good intervention. We are totally aware of this point, the citizen empowerment, the citizen participation for being an actor in this transformative way. I explained that we have a methodology based in 2 parts in parallel. The first one, the scientific, mathematical computer scientist methodology for finding the different infrastructures building that exist to generate the new model. You have described this one, for at the same time generating the new business model. But we have a parallel, this same methodology for the participative empowerment by citizen dwellers. I said proximity or plural proximities are not the same for people that live in an area. This is not the same for the China girl, for women, for male, for elderly people, for sick people, for disabled people, etc., etc. We need to develop an adaptive methodology for listening to citizens, for understanding the not only the socio-economical constraint, for understanding the social demographic constraint, for at the same time evoking the trend of the transformation. This is not the same thing for people that live in a heliotropic city, for example, that people that live in a more isolated area. Anyway, for that, we have developed this creative workshop. We did this afternoon a session with students of the American University of Cairo, the proximity fresque. Another colleague, Benjamin Bürner from the Technological University of München, has done a creative workshop with the flowers of proximity. And the target for this creative workshop is, in fact, the presence of citizen dwellers interested in understanding this model, the situation, for taking part in this transformation, for communicating their wishes, for proposing ideas, inputs, insights, etc. And this is so important. In our experiences, for example, in Santiago de Chile, in Buenos Aires, we have developed this transformation with the concrete participation of citizen dwellers. We were present in the different districts with the same tools, with the proximity fresco, with the citizen dweller of inhabitants, for listening to people, for not for a demagogical presence, for listening to people really, and to explore with them their different inputs, for collecting, for resuming, and after that, for crossing with the social, economic, social, demographic data, and after that, to match with the transformative process for improving the quality of life, the different essential needs, and to develop a program in order to have this best social acceptability. In a city as Paris, for example, for voting the new local urban plan, Anne Hidalgo said, after winning the election, she said, proximity is the backbone with my new urban policy. Proximity is at the heart of this urban policy. But we need to generate a process for including the point of view of citizens. We needed 3 years, from 2020 until 2023, for generating the bioclimate local urban plan. And for that, we need generated in the 17th district of Paris the tremendous sessions with citizens for discussing on that, for presenting this project, for examining, for listening to people, until the first vote in May 2023 for the Paris City Council, and the final vote in a few weeks for having the final version. In March 2024, we will launch as city, as local governance, the different tools for citizens, for inhabitants, for showing the transformation, for accessing to the different services. And we have opened a new digital platform for listening to citizens in permanence in this transformative way. This point needs a democratic, a participative action. We need to listen to people, even when people disagree with our point of view. We need to be enough zen for accepting that people could disagree of our policy. The normal decision is in fact a decision crossed by the vision of the local governance, and at the same time to take account of the point of view of citizen dwellers. This participative process in reality is mandatory, and the name is the local democracy, the local participation. We need to deploy these acts of the local democracy, of the local participation. In Paris, for example, each year we have in September the vote of the participatory budget. 20% of the budget of the city of Paris is reserved for funding projects proposed by citizens for the local elections in the each district, in the whole city, and the project, the winner, are funded by the city for achieving this project. Even if this project is not my favorite project, this is the democracy, people vote, the winner will be funded. The democracy, these real urban mandatory actions in parallel with the decision by a local program decided by the mayor.
Can we take 2 more questions, and then as a closing kind of closure, there's a question at the back, and I can see you. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Vola. I'm here. Hello. Here. Back. Very back. All right. Okay, thank you for the talk. It's quite an eye-opening concept. I didn't know about it. But it kept me thinking about something. So for centuries now, humans have naturally developed living communities like villages that are already very close to this 15-minute city concept. It's a self-sustaining community that would actually have all the services that an individual in a community need, right? So what does this concept of a 15-minute city introduce that's different from what humans have naturally developed over centuries? That's one question. And then my second question is, it seems that this 15-minute city concept is centered about well-being, which is a good point. But what about optimizing for economy? Because the current gigantic urban structures that we see in cities right now is because people started optimizing for economy. So how would this 15-minute city model be attractive for countries, like developing countries? How would it be attractive for developing countries? Yeah. Okay.
Would we take another question?
Yeah,
So that
okay.
then it becomes
Okay.
a closure. Are there any questions? Yeah, here, there's a question at the third row.
This is the male set question.
Professor Carlos, in one of the slides that you showed, there was the name of Christopher Alexander.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and by coincidence, also he was a mathematician as well, before he was an
Absolutely.
artist. Yeah, and of course there you've read him and you've read the notion of the centers, the synergy between the elements and the parts of the city and how the part creates a bigger part and the part belongs to another part that creates a whole that is not inseparable from the parts. So he has a very, very deep and philosophical, notions about the growth, the organic growth of the city, and the concept of the whole. So could you please shed some light on the inspiration of Christopher Alexander from that concept? What did you take from Chris Alexander?
Yeah.
And how did he, influence your ideas?
Of course.
Thank you.
Very good question.
Okay. So these become the last questions. To spare Carlos, he's been here since 8 a.m., so it's like 12 hours, literally.
No, thank you so much, because the set of questions is really fantastic, amazing, amazing. Okay, the first question, villages, the tradition, etc. Please read my latest book. I have totally dedicated 4 chapters for examining this back in the past, for reimagining our future. Really, this is a very, very pedagogical work, including the Egyptian former civilization, Indian former civilization. In a few words, the 15-minute city, this is not the idea to copy-paste the villages of the past, the 18th century, or even the former civilization. Well-being have existed in the former civilization. I was born in Colombia, in South America. I explain in my book, for example, in the Inca civilization, Aymara, Quechua, existed the expression suma causai. Suma causai in the Quechua languages means el buen vivir, the well-being. This well-being, it was, of course, generated by the shaded economy, because in this agriculture economy, each one of peasants, Indian, has own land, but we have 4 days for the collective agriculture in each one of individual lands, and one day for the individual lands in the own land. Well, anyway, we have a lot of different examples, but even if this is today the maybe inspiration for a kind of shared economy, we need to reinvent this model in the 21st century because we have the new challenges. Global warming. Global warming, this is the new challenge. This challenge doesn't exist for Jane Jacobs, for Christopher Alexander, for the former civilization. Maybe they had the other challenges, even at the origin of their extinction as a civilization. But we need today the climate change. We have the ubiquity, this massive ubiquity by the technology of information, the computer science, social networks, the hybridization with the new technologies, artificial intelligence, the exploration of our medical services. We have the possibility for offering more longevity as well. In fact, this is not possible to just have the nostalgia for the former lifestyle when in the 21st century the context is totally different. We wanted to reinvent, of course, back to the past for reinventing the future, to take the good inspirations and to reinvent in face with these new kind of challenges. The second question was, for the economy. Yeah. We have lot of examples. The private sector today, in face with these same challenges, need to switch towards the new business model. One of them, the multipurpose functions. For a long time, we had, with the Saskia Sassen evocation, with the corporate business districts, the final districts, we have the real estate corporate investor for creating this amazing skyline CBD. This business model today is totally failure. In Paris, this is the case, La Défense, in Manhattan, the city in London, etc., etc. The business model of the real estate investor, corporate, but at the same time in the residential areas, should be reinvented. And the 50-minute city today, this is a great opportunity. And this is one of the interesting points. We have observed the real switch from different real estate investors in this way. Christine Leclerc has signed an agreement with FIAPSI. FIAPSI is the Real Estate International Federation. We had, I think yesterday, a panel with FIAPSI, with the presence, with the investor fund, the economy, and one of the real estaters on Asia, Moderna. This is very clear that this sector is more and more aware of the necessity of duty for changing, for having more. The motto for this panel yesterday to create a financial and planning for a sustainable neighborhood. You have a lot of different examples of this transformation. Of course, the hybridization with the new technologies offers the new possibilities for reinventing the keyword is the corporate distributed works to regenerate the decentralized places. We have in Paris today lot of companies, the big companies, Groupama, for example, one of the most important insurance company that have created the different hubs. And the motto is people should go work close, at home, instead of to commute for 2 hours with maybe a less productivity or commitment. I am totally convinced that we have observed today, even experiencing this transformation. Of course, this is the unequal transformation is not the same. Even in the different continents, we have the difference. But we have the new opportunity, the multipurpose functions. This is the new opportunities, the mix of the different services using a distance. We need to continue to insist with the private sector in this way for discussing in this switch. The third question, Christopher Alexander. Yes, of course. Christopher Alexander has wrote an amazing book, several amazing books. In 1962, he was one of the pioneers of the generative grammar for buildings. How could we develop the adaptive patterns for generating buildings in the more inclusive social cohesions? In my book, I evoke as well Christopher Alexander because he's one of the sources of inspiration for evoking people that are not architects or urbanists, but could offer another point of view for having integrative inspirations, the precious insights for generating a more humanistic urbanism. Christopher Alexander is his books and his commitment were one of the source of inspirations for having this different input of the more traditional architect. Jane Jacobs, contemporary with Christopher Alexander, she was a writer, not neither architect nor urbanist. She was a writer, a journalist, and after activist. In Paris, at the mid of the 19th century, the big transformator of Paris, the Baron Haussmann, he was a lawyer. He's not. However, the transformation of Paris by the insight of Baron Haussmann are totally present today. And I think that the inspiration of this kind of personality as Christopher Alexander are very representative of the importance to open the world of architect, of urbanist. And we have the opposite. One of my other sources of inspiration, I'm a big fan of Aldo Rossi. Aldo Rossi was, unfortunately, he died in a car accident in Milano. And Aldo Rossi was an architect. I think that he received the Pritzker Prize, I think. But Aldo Rossi was an architect, committed. He was the creator of the typomorphology. How, with the time, we have the transformation of different infrastructures that exist. But Aldo Rossi was at the same time a scientist. He wrote a nice book, The Biography of a Scientist as Architect. I suggest to students to read the legacy of Aldo Rossi, the typomorphology as well, and the open mind of Aldo Rossi. He was teacher in a lot of different universities, in particular in the USA, and he was totally involved as scientist for evoking the change of style of our daily life, in fact, and to propose the adaptive transformations of infrastructures for hosting this new behavior. Unfortunately, he died by this car accident, I think in 1982 maybe. My previous book, I finished with a tribute. I paid tribute to Aldo Rossi. He was one of the big figures of the architects opened to the scientist world. So different of a world with an architecture several times turned towards the selfish promotion.
No, that's incredible, and it opens the discussion to interdisciplinarity and how we can learn across disciplines. But today was a very informative day for everyone. Since the morning, it really was transformative, and I would say educational in a great extent. Thank you for having the blessing at AUC and really the team, the whole team, from UN Habitat, from Catherine to Chiara to everyone. Really, we are so blessed to have you, and this kind of discussion and dialogue will continue. It will not end. It's a beginning, and we hope to have you more to come and dwell in Cairo a little bit, not to be affected, but to positively impact it. And thank you on behalf of the American University in Cairo and the Architecture Department. We're really so happy, and thank you for this wonderful talk and for the whole day. Thank you, Carlos. Please join me in welcoming Carlos.
Thank you, Momen. Thank you to the American University of Cairo. Thank you to the Department of Architecture. Thank you to you for your presence for this talk, lecture, conversation, and your amazing, fantastic Q&A. Thank you so much.
Can we all come in the beginning to have a group photo, please? Yeah? Can you all come, please? That would be amazing.